You're listening to Level Up with Melissa Zalouf from Iron Source.
Welcome back, everyone. You're listening to Level Up, the podcast for people who love making, growing, and of course, playing mobile games. On this week's episode, we'll be speaking with Bar Sade, who's the co-founder and CEO at Simpool. And we're going to be covering all things game economy related for free-to-play games. Guy, thanks so much for being on the show today.
Yeah, it's a pleasure being here. Thank you for having me.
So before we dive in, tell us a little bit about yourself and Simpool. What do you guys actually do?
So basically, Simpool is a data and a simulation company. We're building a platform which provide two major outputs. The first one is a predictive and lifetime value. And the thing that is unique about the platform is that we are doing this based on in-game simulation.
And you've actually been in BI and analytics for more than a decade in various different verticals, including a stint at Playtika before you founded Simpool. What came first, your love for data or your love of gaming?
So it's an interesting question. It's a good one. I started my journey as an analyst, like data analytics. And for the next few years, I spent like and building intelligence platforms from scratch. And then a few years later, I joined into the gaming space, and suddenly everything was like connected and everything was like self-explanatory for me.
How exactly kind of did the idea to develop Simpool arise?
So after when I started my entrepreneurship path, I looked for places when I can bring all my expertise, like my knowledge and the thing I love to do. And after a few things that were actually not related at all to gaming space, when I started back to work with game companies, mostly helping them to understand the difference between big data and the right data. And I found out that no matter which company I'm talking to, big ones or small ones, actually, when you're cleaning all the noises around, they're also the pains are always the same. It's the way companies are observing the data, eliminating the unnecessary insight and like focusing on what it matters. In many cases, this is like one of the biggest problems, looking on the right data. After that, you realize that monetization is highly dependent on a well-balanced game. And then I look back to my path, and I understand that every time you want to change something in the game economy, it's something so sensitive, and most of the time it is based on intuition, guesstimation, or over long, expensive, risky A/B tests, which requires spend a lot of marketing budget to get significant amount of users. And if you want to see an improvement over 90 days, you actually have to wait this time. And I thought this is a time for something different. And this is I built on my garage a small simulation engine, which basically can simulate users. I show it to my customers that I had back then. They were really fascinated about it, and that's it. And the rest is history.
Uh-huh. So I'm glad you kind of brought up monetization because we are here to talk about economies for free-to-play games. Mm-hmm. So let's maybe start by reviewing some simple kind of no pun intended, reviewing the basic or simple terms. Can you walk us through what resources, structures, actions, and sinks and sources are?
So obviously, when a player starts to play the game, we offer him something to start with, because we want to engage him into the game and let them be excited of playing. And every place when we're offering some kind of a free currency, these are the resources. On the other hand, we do want the user to consume this currency, and at some point bring him to the point that if he want to scale his capabilities, if he want to make just another try in the game, doesn't matter if this is a racing card game, a slot game, he want to make the next big thing, and this is where he maybe doesn't have enough resources. Hopefully, if the game was well balanced, this point happens and the monetization appears. The way we're looking at it, the monetization happens when a need and an opportunity meet. The game economy need to create the need the user want to play, to race one more, to play another game session in Fortnite. But if you want to scale up your car, if you want to have a faster airplane, you need to literally buy a faster airplane to win the next battle. And this is where the monetization work come in and should provide the opportunity. Listen, right now we have a 40% discount on the airplane you need in order to win the next battle.
So a dual currency economy, meaning both real money and virtual currency, is obviously the most common strategy for free-to-play games. What are, to your mind, the disadvantages and advantages to each? And are there other kind of economic structures which you see succeeding?
So obviously, having a multiple currency economy is more complex than having a single one. So back a few years ago, it wasn't very common to have multiple currency. When Zynga launched Farmville on Facebook, I think it was 2008, back then, and suddenly we could have play, we could have, I think they were selling like coins, which we could boost our fields, and it was very simple. But then I think we understood that if we want to monetize, somehow we need to blur in some cases the movement between an actual payment and the currency. And one of them is the soft currency, and the other one is the hard currency. Usually, the monetization will be done through the hard currency, and the soft currency is something that we are converting in order to open ourselves all kind of loot boxes and all kind of features.
Is the idea to make kind of soft currency a gateway? Oh, this is going to sound a bit tough, but kind of like a gateway to hard currency.
You can say so. It's some kind of not creating the direct connection between an actual payment, which is, most of the users actually don't pay, but it's also part of the mechanism to add interest and to add traction to the game. Because if let's say you earn every time you win a race, you earn 100 coins. But then we say, listen, for every 1,000 coins, you can get yourself one shield. Once you're having 4 shields, basically you can open yourself a new car. It's giving you another mechanism which, in one hand, help you to increase the engagement of users, creating another bridge, another milestone to achieve. But it also helps us in monetization aspect, because create another layer which we can use to monetize users.
And how significantly does the game economy factor into the success of free-to-play games? Is it everything?
So we can create a very well-balanced game economy structure to a game with a purpose to move, a concrete bucket from the one side to the other side. So maybe the economy will be perfect, but the game will be probably boring. So it's not like the economy is everything, but we can see so many games out there which are well balanced, which are well designed. Like the animation is perfect, the visualization is perfect, the sound is good, but actually the user don't have any incentive or any need for purchase. So like they always win and progressing very, very fast. The game is too difficult, the frustration level is too high, and then churn is probably high. So I would say it's like 50% for each one of them, product and economy. The way we're looking at it, so firstly, the game must have a story, which doesn't relate like initially to the economy. The game designer need to define what is the high level goal of the game. Is this like winning a race? Is this like taking over the world? This is like planting an agricultural farm, whatever. He need to create and define product goals. For example, we want to convert users in average on after 3 days maybe, and we expect that to happen on a specific level. Once you have this product roadmap defined, the economy has to justify it. It needs to provide enough currency for users to reach the 3rd day. It has to give them enough currency, like on the expectancy, to reach level 20, if we want that to be the conversion point. Not to give too much, not to give too less, and it has to be highly attached to the product roadmap.
Mm-hmm. So let's Let's move on to talking about data. You talked earlier about the difference between big data and the right data, was it? And obviously today it's easier than ever to collect huge amounts of data, and probably will continue to get easier. But more is not always necessarily better. So with all the data that's available, how do you sort of choose what's most relevant to track, and look at when kind of building or balancing a game economy?
Okay, it's a very good question. As technology has been evolved during the past years, it's become easy to simply send every time the user is blinking, sending an event to our database, finishing the days, finish every day with 100 users and 1 gigabyte of data. And it makes everything slower. I think that the smart move is firstly defined what are the precise KPIs that help us take a better decision every day and help us to take decision every time we want to change or add something to the game. There is like standard daily KPIs, which I don't know, 10, 15 major metrics, which will help us understand every day. I would call it the analytical funnel. Do we have a problem? Yes or no? The trend of the major KPIs, are they increasing or decreasing? By the way, a sharp increase or sudden increase on revenues for me is the same problem as a sharp decrease. If we don't know how to explain a sudden increase, we won't be able to explain and understand a sudden decrease. And having the ability to quickly identify these data points, I think it's the basic. Then the second question is where is the problem? And where is the problem? Is also a simple one because it's only taking the main KPIs we defined and simply slice them. We can slice it by um, obvious attributes like countries, platforms, whatever, or segments of user. And I think the more interesting question is what is the problem? Because once we know how to understand the phenomenon we see in data, it will be easier for us to give the solution. So the right metrics is the key to make sure that we are moving fast. I was leading a data unit in a game company, and very fast we try to build big data and everything. And I've learned that, especially on the early age of startups and game companies, you have to be very concrete. Select the right data, select the correct metrics that help all the departments take better decision and move with that. Keep the big data for later stage.
Mhm. Are there specific metrics, like one or two, that you think a developer should be looking at first?
So for me, retention goes first. I think retention, if users don't like the game, they will not retain. If they will not retain, it will not monetize. We can also extract from that how many days users will play on the expectancy. It has a direct effect on the way we are structuring the economy. Obviously, users who pay generating different retention curve, and obviously, it's also one of the things we need to understand when we're structuring the shop inside the game and when we're structuring all kind of the live ops protocols. So I would say retention goes first, conversion goes second, and once we're talking about these two, we can understand how good the game is talking to our players.
And in talking kind of about how do you tackle leveraging or using data in an efficient way versus just a big way, which departments within a given game studio need to be looking at this data? Is it everyone, or is it sort of mainly product and monetization guys?
So I think that beside maybe the HR department, everybody should look.
No data for you.
Not for you. But I think everybody, because even if for a second we're putting the economy on the side, this is a data-based industry. Our marketing team simply actually acquiring user that are I think they're on the biggest budget in an average game company, or the biggest spend, because they need to acquire user and basically create the volume inside the game. But once they're bringing the users into the game, we're starting to talk about LTV and ROI, and what makes user to retain and pay is product. So our product department obviously need to understand deeply the way users are consuming features inside. Where are the churn point? Where are the monetization point? Where are the strong point? What kind of content is more relevant for each specific cohort of users? We have the LiveOps team, which obviously work directly with the product. And I heard someone told me before that free-to-play games is like advertising agency on steroids, because every day something happens. Every day there is an event inside the game. We try to make a party every time, bring the user back inside the game. And obviously there is the game economy team, who basically need to some kind of maneuver between all of them, make sure that when we are releasing a new feature, we're not cannibalizing other features. When observing the data on the right way is the key to understand that. So for me, everybody, even DevOps has a critical data requirements, because they need to monitor the game heartbeat on almost every minute. I'm saying games in some manner is like a live organism. Every minute something can happen. It can be something amazing, and it can be something devastating. Think about a game who is generating hundreds of thousands of dollars every day. Every minute counts. So DevOps is important. Data is relevant for every unit in the company.
Except HR.
Well, I can rethink that. Maybe we can find.
I'm sure. And how do you sort of make sure that people can access this data and access it in a way that's digestible and kind of comprehensible? Not everyone is an analyst, right? By training or by nature. So kind of how do you make that data easy to access and understand?
So I think first is it's more like an organization culture. It creates like a common language, everybody talking the same KPIs, hopefully using the same data systems, because it's easy to get you get some dashboard from Facebook, you get some dashboard from Google, you get some dashboard from this analytics and that, and suddenly you're sitting like in an enterprise cabin with 5 different dashboards. Each one of them has 10 to 15% deviation on the same metrics, and then you need to take a decision and say, okay, so how the hell am I going to do that? I think the basic is making sure that the product team is looking and talking on the same numbers that the marketing team are familiar with. And this is something that is highly spoken I think not almost every day. This is when we're starting to create a culture of data talking company. Not everybody is like focusing on his niche, but talking the high level KPIs, making sure that everybody are aligned. I think it making a lot of processes easier. It creates a mutual conversation. All of them are impacting the economy, and it's bringing the probability to make things right and reduce the risk factor.
Talk to me about funnel reporting. When should it be used, by whom, and why?
So funnel reporting is in some manner, it's something that everybody is talking about it. We can define a funnel in, user are clicking the buy button, then what is the funnel until they are completing and making a purchase. Every space in the game basically create a funnel. I think that the beauty in defining a funnel is not making a very long funnel. It's like breaking this into small points: registration, open the shop, purchase, and maybe starting a new tournament or all kind of features, and then see where is the biggest dropping point: product, visualization, text, and something sometimes we're not offering attractive enough offering. We can suggest to user to participate in a tournament, but maybe the rewarding is not attractive enough, and users say, okay, the probability for me to win is not high and the reward is not attractive enough, so I'll pass that. I think this what makes funnel analysis a good one. Looking like a long arrows with ups and downs, I think it's confusing. And I think funnel analysis definitions start with proper data structure definition. What are the events we want to put in each funnel? And then it makes all the analysis afterwards much easier.
Mm-hmm. And I want to sort of jump to talking about balancing the game economy, which we've kind of mentioned quite often. What do we mean by balancing your game economy?
Okay, so talking about basically the term balance for me is balancing between few factors. It's balancing between winning and losing, free to play time, pay to play time, frustration and satisfaction. I mean, every time and at every point in the game, we need to balance between the two. Psychological side, we do understand that users do not expect to win all the time. So this is definitely something we want to balance. I think the key in well-balanced game economy is the balancing between how much user need to invest at each point and how much we're offering to reward, assuming not all users will be rewarded for everything. And I think this is the key. Balance is not a single number. 100 coins is something that, or let's say 100 is small, but let's say 1,000,000 coins can be something which is hyperinflated for some users, which consume on average only 1,000 coins per day, but it can be nothing for a user who play for billions. So I think that's a smart definition for balance is very important when we are observing the health of the economy. It's obviously changed between different profiles and different points on the user journey inside the game, and this is not something that can be generalized, especially if we wanted to use it efficiently. I'm saying that a basic game economy will be structured from three main objects. The first one is the way and the pace that users are progressing inside the game, like the basic progression mechanism. The second one would be all the features inside the game and the way they are configured. And the third one will be the shop, or the way they are the place where users can actually buy currency. A balanced game is generated when there is a one or two multipliers which are connecting between these three objects and making sure that as long as we are progressing inside the game, we're able to consume a higher level of currency, and making sure that the shop is adjusted for that, and the features in the game are adjusted for that. So everything is progressing on the level, and this is how we are avoid inflation or deflation, and which leads to to some kind of frustration for users that they don't have enough currency to make the minimum inside the game.
And what are some of the common mistakes you see developers make when they're trying to balance their game economy?
Well, the first time is not using and not reading and not analyzing the right data. I think this is the key point. Before making any change in the economy, I think the best practice is first to understand what are the problems and making the best and the most accurate definition for balancing. What does it mean that the game is not balanced? Maybe we're giving a resource of coins which is too frequent and give us too much coins, which are give us too much free to play time. I think this is one aspect. And the second one, obviously, is guesstimating, maybe taking decisions without, just by hunch. Every once in a while, you encounter someone who says, "Listen, I want to do what they do exactly the same. I'm just going to copy that." But in many cases, this simply doesn't work. Every game has its own story. Simply copy, in many cases, is not the key to make a very successful game. You need to keep the innovation side and tailor the economy to the way you want to structure the game. I think this is the key.
And what are some of the best practices for balancing between IAPs and ads?
So it's a good question. So in high level, I would say when you lost or your statistics shows that from this point or from a point in time inside the game, the probability to convert the users becoming so low, this is the time to start to showing ads. If we understand that the user or cohort of users is likely to pay, the potential and the predictive lifetime value of this cohort of users is much higher than an ads based. However, I believe that all the ads mechanism was born in order to not losing the monetization potential for the 95% of users who will never pay. And it's become some kind of a known practice that if you're not paying inside the game, you will probably see ads.
So does that mean that you don't show any ads before that point?
If this is an in-app purchase based games, I would prefer to monetize through in-app because the actual monetization is higher, the potential. When there is the probability become lower, well, let's start to monetize through ads. If this is if in-app purchase is not the mostly in hyper casual games, when the game is kind of flat and the progression is limited, so this is where the ads is more dominant. On ads based game, the majority, the major effort is simply retain users. As much as we are retaining the users, we're increasing the probability to expose them to more ads. When we're talking about lifetime value prediction model for in-app purchases, we're talking about retention and conversion and pure monetization aspects. So in some manner, this is more complex, but the potential and the user lifetime value are mostly much higher.
And speaking of player progression, how can developers use the economy to influence player progression?
When we're observing user journey, it has three major axes. It has the time, time from installation until any point. There is the game progression, and there is the monetization progression, like three-dimensional axis. When the game is well balanced, so we will hope to see like some kind of a linear line. Means that as long as time passes, the user is progressing more inside the game, and the result of that he starts progressing on his monetization aspect. So the economy, when the economy steps in, it basically at the beginning it may be offering a more like an easy experience, giving the user the time to engage, giving him the opportunity to success and progress, expose him to evolving more complex content. Every level, every time you want to pass a level, it will take him more and more time. Obviously, when achieving all kind of missions, will reward him higher, but he will need to spend more time. By the way, users are investing in the game not only by money but also by time, and they are expecting to see ever increasing value for their investment. So I think this is how we can affect that by the economy.
To finish on a maybe I don't know if it's controversial, but maybe a slightly higher level question. Do you ever find that the game economy contradicts or conflicts with the product strategy?
Yes, and when that happens, we have a problem. They need to work. Let's look at this. On average, secondary retention is 40%. This is like a solid game. It means that out of 100 users we put inside the game, only 40 will play from the second day. It means that the conversion point, which we are talking, let's say 4 to 5%, only 5 out of the 100 which were initially stepped into the game will ever pay. So as long as time passed, the probability to have or the amount of users that we have as a potential to convert to paying users becoming lower and lower and lower. The conversion point is varying between different game genres. The casino genre are more aggressive on this aspect. Casual games have more time converting later. But as I mentioned before, this product map or this product roadmap has to be aligned with the economy, because the economy need to give the user enough fuel in order to reach the point the product want him to be. If I want the user to reach level 11 on the first day, I need to give him enough currency either when as a start pack or on every time he winning a mission, on every time when he is leveling up. If that will be too narrow and too flat, he will not reach that point. Maybe he will not be engaged enough So obviously he will not be retaining for the next day, and maybe will not be even engaged enough to pay ever. So it will be very, very aligned. But this is what gives us a playground to optimize this process all the time. And every time we're changing something inside the game, we need to make sure that we're doing it right.
Mm-hmm. I like that. Game economy is the fuel. Well, that we've run out of time, but I have this feeling like we could continue going forever. Thank you very much for being with us today, Guy. It's been a super interesting episode with, I think, a lot to take away. Everyone else, thanks for listening, and see you next episode for more experts talking all things game related.
Thank you very much.